So then how does trade finance link into this? Because you worked as a trader, then you got into trade finance, and then you found a whole different world in that. You know, even though as a student, perhaps for any students listening to this, or even beginners in trade finance as analysts, everyone with the suit seems as if they have the same kind of job.
Yes.
But once you jump into that suit world, you see that's so complex, it's so diverse.
Yes, it is.
And you come into the world of trade finance.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about your journey?
Sure.
And then the second half of that is some of the problems, i.e., the big gap in financing. You know,
those are two big topics. Particularly the second one. I guess my career, I'm very passionate about the opportunities I've had, and I normally say that I was at the right place at the right time. And I'm very grateful for all the opportunities. So I talk about it passionately. But in terms of the trade finance gap, as you mentioned, or the deficit in supply of trade versus the existing demand,
1.5 trillion.
It's huge.
That's the gap.
It is huge.
So
that's where each and every one of us, as trade financiers, really have the obligation to do a little bit better. And I guess one thing for me is linked to the other, because if we look at the way I was educated in the industry, it kind of links to the solutions that I personally have for that trade finance gap. So let's look at the first part of your question. Okay. So I did start as a hedge fund trader, which was a dream come true back then. I guess everything was going well until I realized that I was extremely risk averse, and that my hand would shake every time
you put a trade on.
I put a trade on. So eventually, that relationship between me and
the screens,
6-8 screens or whatever it was, didn't work so well. I remember one day, that's when I realized, okay, that's it. I'm really not cut for this. I remember one day that I had a fairly decent week, and eventually I decided to take a call. It was Friday, and all the traders had agreed to go to the pub. And I remember the US market had just kicked off, and there was some sort of number coming out, but the market had settled now after the number, and all the guys. This was 2004, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. So all the traders were already kind of getting ready to go to the pub. Some of them had made their day already, so they were gone.
Was this in Angola? Or was this in
no? This was here. This was in the city. Yeah. Okay. And eventually, I was happy because I'd made a little bit of money for the week, so I thought, okay, I'm gonna deserve this beer. And my grandmother called, and I thought, okay, it's an okay week, so I'll just take the call and put a position on at the same time, which was a little bit arrogant of me, I think. And guess what happens? The position capsized completely. It was a complete car crash. I ended up losing quite a bit of money.
Do you remember what the trade was?
I can't. No, wait a second. It was foreign exchange. I think it was something like the euro dollar or whatever that went against me, which back then it tended to be a fairly volatile market. With a thin book and so on and so forth, because we were trading on the exchange, on the futures exchange. But that was probably the penny dropping moment where I had to realize, well, I'm not cut for this. When I came out of the position, I said, nah. From there, I had, again, coincidence, an amazing opportunity. I was talking about being the right place at the right time. Clearly one of those moments. I was still with the hedge fund. And I remember, as you are a hedge fund trader, it's a little bit like the fintech guys nowadays. You go to the office on your running shoes and your jeans and T-shirt and so on. And all of a sudden I get a call from a headhunter saying, oh, there's a Portuguese bank in town. We saw your CV, and they're building a representative office. So they want to hire an assistant rep. Okay. Could you come to an interview? And I said, yeah, definitely. I'd be delighted to attend. When is it? It's this afternoon. So eventually, I turn up.
To call in sick, perhaps for the last.
No. It wasn't so much of that because remember, sort of trading environment is quite liberal, so I could just disappear if you like. But the problem was the way I was dressed. Portuguese bankers tend to be fairly conservative.
Okay.
And the head of international was the guy who was in town. And then I realized that the other person, the senior representative, was a very, very, very polished English gentleman, Eton educated, who's still a dear, dear friend of mine, and to whom I owe a lot in my career. But that moment, I entered the room. I was going to be interviewed by these two rather stern, experienced individuals, dressed in their best suits, and there I was in my running shoes. But interestingly, so this gentleman's name is Tom Hoffman. He's an absolute brilliant banker and an incredible person. And he didn't judge the book by its cover. So we clicked straight away, and we had quite a few good years together. Later down the line, he was even chair of an advisory company that I ran for a while, and we're very, very close.
Very good.